Welcome, everyone. I'm Rachel Anderson. Welcome to our panel discussion of retirement, ready or not, brought to you by the Office of Alumni Relations. I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm a graduate of the S.J. Quinney College of Law at the University of Utah, and I'm the chair of the Utah Alumni Board of Governors Networking and Careers Committee. I'm glad to welcome our retirement experts today, and especially our alumni joining us for guidance in preparing for retirement. So let's meet our panelists. I'm going to go through them one at a time to let everyone have a chance to say hello. First, we have Sean Lee, who is the managing partner for the Elevated Retirement Group's Salt Lake City team. He has helped families reach and maintain their financial goals since 2002. He coaches and assists clients with their financial goals by focusing on the fundamentals, and he takes a practical and personal approach when working with them. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Lauren Anderson. Lauren is the Senior Director of Professional Education and Personal Enrichment at the U's Division of Continuing Education. She's a lifelong learner with a JD degree from Gonzaga University School of Law and a BA from American University. Lauren has managed programs at the U's Lifelong Learning Program since 2016, and last year she took on leadership of the Professional Education Program. Good to have you on the panel, Lauren.
Thanks, Rachel. Great to be here.
Okay, and last but not least, I would like to introduce Brett Leonard. Brett is a financial advisor with the University Financial Services, a full-service wealth management organization dedicated to assisting organizations as well as retirees in developing comprehensive solutions regarding wealth decisions. Brett customizes solutions for his clients' financial objectives based on specific needs, goals, and visions. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
Thanks, Rachel. Glad to be here.
Okay, I'm going to start out with a question for Sean. Many of us have a vision for our dream retirement, but may not have the assets necessary to fulfill that dream. How do you help clients address the realities of retirement?
So it's interesting. This is a pretty common question, Rachel. When we look at planning, really the two biggest questions that we get, and I'm trying to get my screens to work here, are, will I have enough money to experience the retirement that we've dreamt about? And will my money last as long as I do? Will we have enough money to last our life expectancy or as long as we do? And will it allow us to do the things that we want to do? And those are the two biggest questions that we get, whether we're sitting down with families here in our office or we're teaching classes in colleges and universities throughout the country. And a lot of that comes down to building a complete plan. And far too often people get caught in, well, what's my 401k doing? What are my investment strategies doing? What's this mutual fund doing over that mutual fund? And in a lot of cases, that's just not enough. I mean, you can go and you can get information from the media, and you can Google investments and get 1 billion, hits in a second. You can listen to the radio. You can even go and get invited and go eat dinner every night of the week if you're getting close to retirement. But there's really not a process for people to build clarity and to build a complete plan that's unique and customized to them. So what we've found is that when you can go through a process that's logical, that is fact-based, and is unique and customized to what your needs are, planning becomes really simple. And if you do that through a 5-step process or focus on 5 areas, you have what we call a complete plan. And I use the example a lot. Everybody on this call, they drive. They've probably driven a car today. If I asked you what color a stop sign was, most people would say it's red and white. But if we take a step back and I say, well, what color is a yield sign? The majority of people, when I ask that question, you may answer yourself, oh, it's yellow and black. When the reality is a yield sign has been red and white for almost 50 years. We don't realize that. So we go by this old rule of thinking, this old thought process of, this rule persists to me and will follow me along my life path. When the rules of engagement change as you get closer and closer to retirement. Most successful people in retirement, they've done a couple of things. One, they've built a complete plan. The earnings benefit or the Employee Benefit and Research Institute said the number one source of information for retirees is a financial advisor. And we look at a complete plan, we're not just talking about investments. We're not just talking about just one area of, my investments are doing better than yours. We have to focus on income planning first, and that's really solving a math problem. How are all of your expenses going to, what are those expenses going to look like? How do you walk yourself through a process to determine exactly what you're spending? And then what are my sources? What are my sources of income going to be, whether I have a pension or Social Security or whatever it may be? And then understanding what your gap is and then your math problem. Now, at that point, then the investments should come in. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of different types of investments. But understanding what your income plan needs and driving the investments to solve those problems is really where the magic happens when it comes to planning. Then from my perspective, a lot of my practice is built around strategic tax planning. How do you strategically withdraw assets from various buckets, various sources, and various areas of savings that you've accumulated over the years, whether it's IRAs or Roth IRAs or after-tax money. Then we look at healthcare planning. When you start to look at, as I get older, if I retire before 65, what happens? Where do I go to get insurances? What sort of insurances are available? 65 on, Medicare, and then this ugly word of long-term care. Don't really know if you're going to need it, but it could potentially be a drain on your assets. And then you wind that up with legacy and estate planning. Now, I'm not an estate planning attorney. I don't pretend to be an attorney, but that's a vital portion of a plan. And how do you transition assets efficiently and strategically to the next generation becomes more important if you've got second marriages or children with substance abuse problems or whatever it may be. And I use myself as an example. I'm in a mixed family. I've got step siblings and I've got siblings that unfortunately we're all at different phases of our life and we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and estate planning is vital for my family. And so when we start to look at having a complete plan, it's not just this investment's better than this one or this 401k is better than that one. That's really not what we should look at. We should look at focusing on all 5 areas of planning and then really taking the time to find somebody who can strategically guide you through these 5 areas. And that really comes down to how do you choose a financial professional? Now, what I've done is I've just taken snippets from a longer 5-hour class that we teach. 8 minutes or 10 minutes is a little short to really go into the guts of planning. But I wanted to give an overview. This is what complete planning looks like. And then how do you choose a financial professional? Because as we all know, and Brett's an advisor as well, advisors carry various licensing, and all of that licensing means different things. And so when you start to look at how to find an advisor, what questions to ask, there are different standards of care that advisors follow. And the first one is the suitability standard of care, which means that an individual represents a company. They sell products from that company's, call it stable of product. Usually paid on commissions, and at the bottom of that, they don't have to disclose possible conflicts of interest. It doesn't mean that individual may not have your best interest at heart, but the standard of care is that they just have to do what's suitable. Now, then you've got the fiduciary standard of care, which is more the investment advisory side, which means now under the fiduciary standard of care, you have a moral, ethical, and legal obligation to do what's in your client's best interest. Usually paid on a fee-based percentage of assets under management. And the other side to this is that they have to disclose possible conflicts of interest. They don't work for a company. They work for the individual and the family that they're representing at that time. Now, to wrap up kind of my little section, I put in just a couple of pieces on questions to ask an advisor. I think these are important. I don't think they get asked enough. And as you're going through and understanding how to build your plan, it's important to find the advisor that's the right fit for your phase of life, your stage of life, and what your needs are. And so the questions that we've put together are you a fiduciary? And will you write that out? Will you sign off on it in a contract that you are a fiduciary? How do you get paid? What licenses, credentials, or other certifications do you have? Right now, I think that there are 4 main designations in our industry that are kind of the top tier. I think the CFP, I think that what's called Certified Financial Planner. I think CHFC, which is a Chartered Financial Consultant. I think the RICP, which is a Retired Income Certified Professional. And then having a master's in financial planning is the 4th. What type of clients do you specialize in? Can I see a sample of the types of financial strategies you prepare? Far too often, I see somebody come to me and they say, "Hey, I have a plan." Well, can we see it? Is it on one page, or is it laid out to where you can follow it whether I'm here or not as the advisor? How much contact do you have with your clients? Do I work with you or a team? What's your approach? And then I think more importantly, at the very end, have you ever been publicly disciplined for any unlawful or unethical actions during your career? I want to know that. As an individual, I want to know if the person I'm meeting with has been publicly disciplined. On the flip side of that, I also want to know, have you had any financial or regulatory issues? Have you filed for bankruptcy? Have you lost a car due to repossession? Had credit cards, settled? I want to know if my advisor can handle their finances as well as I can, or as I would expect. And there are lots of places that you can go to research. If you're looking for somebody to research an advisor on the suitability side, you go to finra.org, just FINRA.org, or do what's called a broker check. If you're looking to research an advisor that falls under the fiduciary side, you do what's called an SEC investment advisor search. There are places that you can go to research people and pull that data out if they're not willing to disclose it. With that, I wanted to thank you guys. I think I stayed under my allotted time. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast, but thank you. I appreciate it. I'll stick around as long as you need me to.
Thanks, Sean. That was absolutely fantastic. I found that to be really useful to have the list of questions that you might want to ask a potential financial advisor. And I just wanted on that note to add something I probably should have said at the beginning, that if you did register for this event, you will be receiving an email tomorrow that has this recording and all of the materials that you're seeing here today that will be super helpful for you. So you'll be able to see those and don't need to write furiously. So next, we're going to talk to Lauren. I'm guessing that returning to college isn't necessarily the first thing that people think of as they start retirement. How do you see alumni using the diverse curriculum offered through the U's continuing education programs?
I see them coming to us and giving us a try. So as the Director of Professional Education and Personal Enrichment, I oversee 4 programs, and they are meant to serve all adults looking for non-credit education. And we offer programs in the Lifelong Learning Program, Osha Lifelong Learning Institute, and a travel program called Go Learn. And these are all things that people can take advantage of and really come to us to learn something else, to be taught by a university faculty member or retired faculty, and just get a chance to get a sense of what haven't you used your brain to learn that you want to do now. And what's great about all of these programs is you're surrounded with curious people, and they are excited to talk about different ideas. They're excited to talk about the things that they're learning, whether it's watercolor. We've had people that have come to us and said, I spent my whole career as a computer engineer, and I've always thought very linear. And now I get this chance to tackle this world of painting. I've always been curious. I've always thought maybe I'd be good at watercolor. And they come and they have an instructor that's also retired, or someone that's been teaching for a really long time, and they get to explore this whole new medium, this whole other way to engage their brain. We know that as we get older, our social circles are really important. I'm not retired yet. I'm not even close, but I'm aware of the fact that I get to engage with people who love their friends, who get to have meaningful conversations, and those conversations start around class. So our lifelong learning program is for anybody over 18. Most of the people who take our classes are just about to retire or newly retired, and they're looking for classes that are in language, music, art, as I mentioned. We have cookie decorating and cake decorating. And right now, all of those classes are being delivered online. We've done a few face-to-face at this point in time, but they're outdoor classes. So people went kayaking a couple weeks ago, socially distanced, but learned to kayak with an instructor, got to go outside and be in the great fall weather. And then we've got our Osha Lifelong Learning Institute. This is a membership-based program. It's for people over 60. We have one of the largest contingencies here with the University of Utah. There's an Osha Institute in every state. We're the only one in the state of Utah. And we have over 1,800 members, so 1,800 curious adults coming together to talk about history, politics, science, religion, art history, and lots of classes where people can just get together and talk about, I didn't know that, did you know that? Or share your life experience. You know, I served in World War II and here was my experience. We have a lot of classes that are like that. And again, those are all available online at this point in time. We normally meet on campus, but right now we're online. And we found that this is a great way for people from across the world to find us and take classes with us. And so we are offering a 50% discount to U Alum for the classes. So you just go to the U Alumni website or go to the Osher website, osher.utah.edu, and you can see the alumni discount of 50% off. And the other program that we love is the Go Learn Travel program. This is the travel program, the official travel program of U Alumni. And this is your chance to travel with faculty to their area of research. So you can go with an archaeologist to Mexico and explore ruins. You can go with an economist to Cuba and talk about their economy and how their political choices have affected their economy. You go with a small group. So this isn't a big cattle call. This is 20 people that travel exclusively with a faculty member. And in this point in time when we aren't traveling, we are meeting you online with a at-home speaker series. And so you get to meet with faculty every Thursday for free at noon. That's at our Go Learn website. And you get to travel with them. They'll show pictures, they'll tell stories, they'll get you excited for the next adventure. It's gonna come, we'll get there, but for now we're just planning. And when we go, we hope to go in 2021. When we go, you'll get the opportunity to go to places like Normandy with an expert on World War II. You'll get to go to places like London with theater professors from the University of Utah, maybe see some plays that you never would have picked out, but go with a group of people who love theater, but maybe love London more, and talk about what you saw and what you experienced. Those are special trips that really are once in a lifetime. So we encourage everybody that's an alum, that's retiring or thinking about it, to keep us in mind that social network, that staying curious, that engaging in conversation is really important. And we create those opportunities for people. It's not like college, there's no grades, there's no homework. It's just come, learn, have a great time. And we're there to support you through it. We offer programs throughout the year. So we didn't miss a beat when everything went down for the pandemic. We were in classes the next week, offering classes to our students. And so, you know, we're here for you at any time. And we think it's a great program with a lot of talented faculty and instructors that are passionate about learning and engaging you in that learning process. So that's how I think you should come back and learn about what we offer when you're retired.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That's super exciting to hear about and makes me want to retire right now. I have a great aunt who did one of the travel programs with one of the professors and absolutely loved it. And I think that just sounds super amazing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Another quick note, I have got at least one question that has come through. I'm going to collect those and save them till the end unless they're kind of more pertinent to what's going on right now. But feel free to send your questions. We are monitoring those and I'll make sure that they get asked. So for our last speaker, we have Brett. And Brett, you often begin your presentations with a mountain climbing analogy. So can you please share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Appreciate that, Rachel. And yeah, Sean and Lauren did a great job. So hopefully I can uphold their tradition here and bring some valuable information. So let me just share that screen here. Let's see here. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that mountain. Well, if we have any climbers out there, and like Sean, this is usually a little bit longer presentation. So cutting this down to 8 to 10 minutes, I'll have a wing at it here. Well, hopefully everything will go well. But this is a picture of Everest. For those who don't know, or maybe aren't climbers, I'm sure maybe we have some climbers out there. In my normal presentation, actually, I'm not a morbid person, but it actually helps to bring in some of the visual and get people thinking. I actually talk a little bit about the concept of bodies on Everest. Again, not being morbid or not being gross, but it's a really, really fascinating thing, quite frankly, that here are these people who dedicate their lives really to climbing mountains, and they really literally risk their lives. And Mount Everest is such an unforgiving environment that, as we know, people can die on Mount Everest, and when you do, the bodies are normally left there. So this is meant to be an analogy. If you look at this, many people might think it's really dangerous getting up there to the top, which it is. But if you were to ask a climber, the most dangerous time is actually on the descent. Most of those who have perished on Mount Everest are from the peak or from the top of the mountain down about a third of the way or whatever from the top as they get to that the top base camp. So it's a very perilous time for them. They're weak, they're coming down, and there's actual markers. The most famous one, I'll just share it with folks just to kind of get in the mood here. But the most famous one is actually called Green Boots, and it's actually a hiker who perished, and he's actually a marker on the path to go down. People know they're going the right way. They literally have to step over or by this hiker who perished way back in 1996. But so this is meant to draw an analogy towards our retirement scenario. And if you think about it, earlier this year, you could actually think this is exactly the same. If you could think someone who's coming up on retirement, and this kind of shows the same thing, they've been working their whole life. Think about a retiree that's coming up on retirement earlier this year, say around March. If they haven't done much planning, if they're still kind of working, their money's in their 401k, think about what their statement looks like in the beginning of March. Think about if they haven't done anything, and then think about what that statement might have looked like at the end of March. I mean, it would have been exactly like we see in our graph, and really a dangerous time. Their money would have, as we know, the market went down over 30% within a month's time period. So it can be really, really volatile. It just goes to the point that there's a lot of potential risks. And it sounds like Sean does a great job helping people plan through these things. And it's what I do as well. And so this next screen, hopefully as it's popping up, it's bringing up all the different types of risks that maybe a lot of people don't give a whole lot of consideration to. If we were to use the analogy on climbing or on hiking, most people might not think the risks are on the way down. They might think it's on the way up, but coming down, are you low on oxygen? Is a storm coming in? Do you have enough equipment and supplies? Well, in retirement planning, we have all of these risks, some of which maybe obviously probably people understand. The silent I that we refer to as inflation. People maybe hear that word and they think about it, but they may not understand the power that it has and it affects on retirement. Healthcare costs, the type of lifestyle that you want to live. Longevity is a huge one now as we are living longer. one of the biggest ones on here is kind of right in the middle. It's in blue. It's called sequence of returns. That's a really fancy term that my profession or my industry gives to basically that Mount Everest situation, or that situation I explained earlier this year. The type of returns that someone has heading into retirement are huge. They're so important, and it's almost luck of the draw. So to get past that luck of the draw, what you need to make sure you're doing is planning. So the good planning, like Sean was talking about, helps each individual to overcome all of these different types of uncertainty. It's what I love doing. Again, it sounds like it's what Sean loves doing, and there's other great advisors out there that care about the people they work with, the people they work for, and help to plan for retirement. So my big thing is making sure that we sit down with each individual person. We talk about their goals and objectives, and we talk about their feelings of what type of retirement they want to lead. And then we talk about how that retirement is going to mesh with these different risks. My last slide, oh, it doesn't come up in order. I'll just go to it real fast right here. So I think Sean had part of this up there. You know, another valid reason to have a financial advisor is talking about your risk tolerance, your time horizon, and determining appropriate allocations for your investments. The interesting thing nowadays is that a typical moderate portfolio today is really not the same as a moderate portfolio 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. We're in an unprecedented time where the 10-year treasury, last I looked, was right around 0.5%. So you get very little yield, which hurts your bond portfolio. And we've got a stock market that's really, really volatile. So what so my objectives and my goals are to help people negotiate that and work through that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that we're doing things for the right reason, based on the right timeframes and the planned usages for people's assets. I'm looking at my clock, sorry, and I think I'm coming up on my time. And I know that I'm probably the separator between everybody and freedom for the end of the day. So I don't want to hold anyone back and maybe leave more time for questions and answers if we have that. But the main thing is, I think, is just make sure you talk to somebody. I started my career at Fidelity Investments, which is a great company. They do a great job, and it's not a knock on Fidelity, but at the time when I was there, it was more of, it wasn't really advice. It was, let me kind of help you, but then ultimately you make your decision, which is fine. People make their own decisions. I liken that to the Home Depot of investing. If you're comfortable making those decisions, it's totally great. But I saw while I was there, 8 years while I was there, a lot of people that probably needed an advisor, and for whatever reason, they weren't willing or desirous to go talk to somebody. And so I would always just consult or advise to seek out somebody like Sean or myself, and just make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and your plan for whatever comes at you. So I'll finish with that. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. That was really great. Thank you so much. I appreciated all of the details about the different risks that you encounter in retirement, different things that you don't necessarily think about when you're planning ahead. We've now heard from all of our panelists. I do have several questions that I'm going to share and see if some of these are mainly for our financial advisors to answer these questions. The first question is, I am still working, I have a monthly budget, and I know where my money goes. What changes in my budget can I expect once I am retired? I don't know if Sean or Brett, one of you would like to take that question.
We can do both, alternate. I was just talking, Sean, if you want to take it.
Yeah, Sean, why don't we take a turn?
Yeah, I think when it comes to budgeting, your budget now could potentially be different than it is in retirement. Brett talked a little bit about inflation, and that's one of the uncontrollables. I can't control what inflation is going to do. I can't control what the markets are going to do. But when it comes to budgeting, and I tell people to budget one of two ways. So map it out, and we've got some resources we could send out to the group, and I'm happy to do that. What are your essentials versus your discretionaries? Your have to haves versus you want to haves. And then earmark those expenses that potentially will come off. Hey, will my mortgage come off down the road? Will I pay off a car? Do I have some debt that's gonna be paid off? And write that all out. And then the second thing that I would do is I'd pull your bank statements for a full 12 months, because what you think you're spending is oftentimes 15 to 30% less than what you're actually spending. And so when you go down this route of budget, understand what expenses are going to fall off, and then get a really good handle on what you're spending is how we do things. So Brett, I'll let you take it from there.
I would agree completely. I would, from that question, I would wholeheartedly agree that what Sean said comes down to essential and discretionary. But then just one phrase I always use to kind of talk to people about that. I've been around doing this long enough. I've had a lot of folks transition into retirement, and they always come back and say, "This is great. Every day is Saturday," and they're super, super happy. But you got to remember, how much do you spend on Saturday? So if you're wondering what might change in your budget, think about maybe when you get to the weekend and it becomes, party time or have some, which is great. Think about what your Saturday's like, and then just think about what kind of lifestyle you want to have. And if every day is Saturday, then you just want to make sure that you're planning accordingly. Because in my current life, I'm, wife and 4 kids, I'm trying to recuperate after Saturday most times. So it just consider that as well.
And that's a really good point. I've got a question for Lauren. What advice and resources do you have for people who have retired or have been offered early retirement and would like to explore working in a different industry?
Oh, that's a great question. So the advice I have is, think about what you want to do. So this is time in your life where what are the things that you haven't done as a career that you're really curious about? We think a career change happens, in people's lives all the time, but a career change can happen after you've been in an industry for 10 years. So if this is going to be the last thing you do, are you service oriented? Is there a skill you need to learn? And then explore what's out there. We are so lucky in this community to have a lot of places that are willing to give skill training at an affordable rate, that have great payment plans. And so search around, look at the University of Utah's professional education and executive education programs, look at Salt Lake Community College, but look at what's out there and think about what you're interested in. The other nice part about these skill training programs is they're usually short. So and they're usually part-time. So you could be working in your current job and be dedicating 24 weeks to learning how to code in a boot camp type scenario in the evening. Or you could be learning online, or you could be in a cohort that's meeting like this through Zoom to work through some content. But really think about what you want to do. I mean, this is your next step, and it should be something that's really fulfilling for you. And you'll find it. Check out our websites.
Thanks, Lauren. Next question. I'm going to throw this one to Brett to start with, since we started with Sean last time. How do I find out what my Social Security benefits will be, and when can I access them? And I think this is the second question that I think kind of goes together. I know I can take my Social Security benefits early. What's the penalty? If you can kind of lump those two together.
Sure. So in general, one, how do you find out about your benefits? So depending on your age, you may or may not be getting a Social Security statement in the mail. They stopped mailing those to save money. So that's good, I guess. So most of that you now access online. So if you go to the Social Security Administration website, you'll have to create a login, and you can log in on that website, and you can see your estimated benefits. And those estimated benefits are generally going to show if you were to take your benefit early, which is at 62. So that's when you, in generally speaking, would be able to take your benefit early at 62. Then it would show your Social Security benefit at what's called FRA, which stands for your full retirement age. So we're, think of that as being 65, but for a lot of people now that's getting pushed out to, 66 and 7 months and 67 and that kind of thing. And then it will show it the full benefit if you wait and defer all the way up until 70. So it'll show those figures on there. I'm sure Sean has access to Social Security analysis tools as well. So by going and seeing Sean or myself, we can also help you with that information, and we can run through a Social Security analysis for you. To again get those. Again, we're always going to give you that disclaimer that ultimately it comes down to the Social Security Administration, but I've never had an issue with it. But ultimately, it's their decision on what happens there. But yeah, so that'll give you that estimate, and those analysis tools that Sean and I have. They're going to, you can run different scenarios, going early, going late, doing different things. Depending on your age, one last thing I'll let Sean finish because I forgot the rest of the questions. But a lot of the planning strategies we're taken away basically a few years back, and so there's not depending on your age. If you're just now getting to age 60 and 62, you probably don't have a whole lot of options. Whether you take it early or just defer. I mean that's it's pretty simple. The longer you wait, the more you're going to get. There's still maybe a few planning solutions that, again, if those things are available, Sean and I are going to be able to address those and pick them out for you and go over it on a specific basis. So hopefully that answered the question, and then I'm sure Sean has been thinking of stuff while I'm talking. So.
No, you're good, man. Yeah, I mean, Social Security is kind of if you look at Social Security, it's by far the most marketed topic in the financial services industry. I live in Draper. I'm 40 years old. I get invites to dinner seminars constantly. I don't know why, but I'm not the demographic, and a lot of it is around maximizing Social Security. And you listen to the radio, it's about maximizing Social Security. At this point in time, the only way to maximize Social Security is work till you're 70. I mean, that's really the reality of it. What I think we want to focus on when you do plan is how do you optimize the use of Social Security? So how do you leverage Social Security, whether you take it early and have a 32% reduction, whether you take it at 67 or 68 or 69, how do you optimize Social Security in your plan so you don't put stress on your assets? Because at the end of the day, I can't pass my Social Security benefit on to my kids, but I can pass my assets on. So if you take the time and meet with an advisor like myself or Brett that focuses on how to optimize and incorporate everything into a plan, that's when you can create a more of a powerful, robust scenario for yourself. Because I would rather pass assets on to my kids than push Social Security out an extra 3 years. And so there is always going to be a mathematical time and when it makes the most sense to take it.
Thank you. I'm getting a little bit close to time, but I do have 2 more questions. So I'm going to see if we can answer these kind of quickly. The first one, if I've been funding my retirement fund / 401k with pre-tax dollars, do I have to pay taxes as soon as I access those funds? Which one of you wants to field that first?
I can.
Yeah. Okay, Brett.
I was muted. So do I have to pay taxes as soon as I access those funds? Yes, in theory. So one, I guess that's a veiled question. If you're making a contribution to a 401k plan and you're still employed at that at that employer, you may have access to those funds via taking a loan from your 401k plan. That's something that I would just advise you to consult with your plan administrator, your HR department, and find out what your options are to access funds while they're in the plan. If you can access those funds via a loan provision, of course, then in that case, you're paying yourself back, but you do set up a plan, and it's just like paying a loan, but you wouldn't be taxed on it or penalized on it. So that would be one way to access those funds. If you are actually pulling those out, and not taking a loan, that is going to be considered a withdrawal under most situations. Then there's going to be, we can get really deep. We probably don't have time, but there would be a few exceptions to where you would possibly be able to get that money out. But it's always going to be taxable. You just may not be penalized on it. But when you take that money out, it's going to be taxable. If you're under 59.5, you'd have a 10% penalty for early withdrawal. If you're over 59.5, you would just be taxed on those funds. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And the very last question, I'll just let Sean take. And this is a kind of broad question. What age do you recommend retiring? I'm sure there's a lot of it depends to that question, but give it your best shot.
When you can, right? I mean, when I look at retirement and we work with, I've got families that I can't get into retirement because they just won't do it. We've got families that are chomping at the bit. And what I would say to that is when you can, when you want to, and when you have clarity to have the freedom to choose. So, I look at a scenario. I actually had one of our advisors come in yesterday talking to me about a family that he just met with. And it wasn't that they wanted to retire right away. It was that they wanted to know if they could retire right away. And so by having clarity and having a plan that you can follow, I think that opens the doors to really have freedom. The most successful people in retirement have clarity. They work with an advisor, they work with a CPA and an estate planning attorney. And when you have clarity of what your plan can provide, whether it's retirement now or retirement in 2 years or 10 years, once you hit that point, you have the freedom to choose. Sean, hey, I don't want to retire yet, but I've got the freedom to choose to walk out the door if my employer doesn't treat me right. And by having that, the ability to do that, it creates, I think, a better worker, because now you just go in and you can get your job done. You can do the things that you want to do. And so when it comes to retirement, everybody's going to be a little bit different, whether it's if you retire pre 59.5 and a lot of your money's in retirement. Well, your planning has to be different than somebody who retires post 59.5. And so I think a lot of it comes down to when's the most optimal time to retire. It's when you can financially do it, but more importantly, when you're mentally ready to do it. Because the finance side is just math. That's really all that it is. But it's the mental aspect where people have the most problems and where they struggle. And that's when you see people just go back to work because they don't know what to do with that 2,500 hours of time that they've just been given back. So
those are some really interesting points. Thanks. We had one more question come in that we'd like to get answered before we close. And I'll throw this to you, Brett. If I retire before age 65, what are my best options for medical insurance? Also, another one I'm sure that can be changing as the laws change and things are just crazy right now with insurance, medical insurance, but give it your best shot.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. And probably Sean has dealt with the same thing. If someone's retiring before age 65, if there's not any type of employment providing health insurance, that's probably most likely going to be one of your largest expenses, especially depending on your health situation. At that point, that's one I just consult with people. If you don't have a lot of resources and financially to be able to make that up, it's best for somebody to keep working in some way, shape, or form or capacity until you're 65 and until you can get on Medicare. It can be pretty expensive. I'm sorry, I don't know that there's really not unless Sean has something, he's going to get everyone going to see him. I don't know of a silver to make up that difference. There's just no, it's just, you flip a coin and somebody keeps working. Hopefully, the hope is that in our current environment with technologies and the things we do, hopefully work can be more enjoyable. Hopefully we can work longer. To add to what Sean was saying, some people just want to keep working, because they like it and they find it fulfilling. And so even if it's something part-time that's going to pay, I have people that literally work part-time, hardly make anything as far as income, which is fine, but they have health insurance benefits. And they do that until they're 65, until they get onto Medicare. Outside of that, unless you go through the math, like Sean was saying, and you've got the the resources to pay for health insurance premiums, I would suggest hanging in there until you can get onto Medicare. So,
Thanks. Do you have anything else to add, Sean? You
Oh,
muted yourself.
There we
you
go. I got this fancy remote. I don't know how to use it, but yeah, because I have to stand. But anyways, it's going out to the exchange, and there's ways that through planning, if you can keep your incomes low, the health premiums tend to be less. But like Brett said, you got to go to the open market. And if you can't keep your income levels below a certain amount, you're going to pay anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 a year from what I'm seeing out in the marketplace. And I don't do health insurance. There's things that I can specialize in. There's things that I just don't want to specialize in. But that's the average cost that we're popping into plans at this point in time. But strategically, if you can keep those income levels low, you can go out to the exchanges and go to Obamacare and get reduced premiums. So, yeah,
Awesome.
All comes back to planning.
Yep. Well, thank you all so much. I think this was a really beneficial presentation that you guys all gave. I personally learned a lot. I want to remind everyone to go to alumni.utah.edu for additional networking and career resources. Thanks again to our panelists, Sean, Lauren, and Brett. Again, you'll be receiving an email tomorrow with some follow-up information from this event. So please be on the lookout for that. And other than that, everyone have a great evening. And thank you all for watching today. Go Utah.
mhm.